Hey guys, this is Martin Perdomo, the Elite Strategist. I'm the host of Latinos in Real Estate Investing podcast and the CEO of Skill Property Finders. In this episode of Business Growth Architect Show, I will discuss what it takes for you to succeed in real estate. What's the mindset it takes? What do you need to do? Who do you need to become in order to win as a real estate investor? Make sure you tune in and make sure you check out the full episode.
Welcome to the Business Growth Architect Show. I am Beate Gillette. I am the host. I want to welcome you to our globally top 10% ranked podcast, where you will hear from industry experts about the strategies that are working right now to unlock hidden opportunities in any market so that you can grow your authority and scale your impact. And now let's get started with the show. Hello and welcome back. This is your host, Beate Gillette, and today I'm talking to Martin Perdomo, the Elite Strategist, and we're going to tell you today, in no uncertain terms, how to stick it to the man. And when we were kind of talking about this title, Martin was chuckling and he says he's all game for it. So Martin, tell us who you are. Welcome to the show, and let's dive right in.
Hey, Beate, thank you for having me on your show. Really an honor, a pleasure for me to share here with you and your audience. So again, like you mentioned, my name is Martin Perdomo. I go by the Elite Strategist. I'm what you call a real estate investor, but I'm more really of a real estate entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I started in this industry of real estate in 2007, and I was a mortgage guy. So right before the last bubble in 2007, I bought my first investment, but I was selling mortgages. I owned a mortgage company in 2005. And I was the guy giving out the free money. If you look at the news and you hear the news and you hear about all the stuff that happened back in those days and how the mortgages blew up, well, I was a guy that would write those loans. People would come in my office and with a 550 credit score, and I would give them an 80-20 loan, which is 100% loan to value. Give them an 80-20 loan. And we weren't giving away money, but money was so easy back in those days, Beate, that I got FOMO. I got fear of missing out. I was doing all these loans and I was selling all these. I was writing all these loans. I was a broker. I wasn't the lender. We were brokering them out to the lenders. The lenders had the product, and we would offer them. We would offer them on behalf of the lenders, just to be clear for your listeners. And so I was doing so many of these loans, these stated income, stated asset loans, no income, no verification, none of that stuff. The ninja loans, no income, no jobs, no assets, right? And I woke up one day and I was like, oh my gosh, if I don't buy now, I'm going to miss out because everyone's going to buy all the land and all the property and I'm going to miss out. So I went and I bought my first investment, Beate, and bought my first duplex in 2007. And in 2009, girl, I was $100,000 underwater on that property. By 2010, 11, I was using my personal HELOC, home equity line of credit, to pay my bills. I was $170,000 underwater. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue how to do it. I was doing it because everyone else was doing it. And 2 years later, I was $170,000 underwater. Then sold that property. I was playing Mr. Landlord. I was leasing it, painting it like a mom and pop. A lot of your listeners probably know of people like this, that they're doing everything themselves. I didn't know how to run the numbers, and I realized I needed a mentor or coach. I got a mentor coach, and I learned how to run the numbers, came back into the business as a professional in 2015. And here I am. I now have 140 doors. Doors means apartments. I have 140 apartments. I have a fully built out business, Skill Property Finders, where we buy, fix, and flip properties, or we buy, fix, and rent them, or we wholesale, something called wholesaling, where that entity does all of that. And then I have another entity where I have a partner and we syndicate property. So we buy them with investors. We buy big apartment buildings with investors' money. And we take down these big apartment buildings. Currently, we have a 160 unit apartment building under contract in Tulsa, which is our biggest deal so far for $10 million. We're buying that. So I'm excited for the future. The future is very bright.
Super fascinating. And so the reason I wanted you on the show, Martin, is because you didn't wake up like that one day. And you made mistakes and you lost money. You know, I was $135,000 in debt. Now I don't feel so bad because you were $170,000 in debt. So, I mean, best guest ever, right? And the idea, though, is that we want to tell our audience, our beehive, is let's really get real here. So
Let's do it.
you went in and you said, I'm doing something, I'm seeing an opportunity in the market, and you jumped on the opportunity. You didn't know what you were doing. You were a classic entrepreneur. You go, how hard can it be? I'm going to figure it out. Is that about what happened? It's like, what was it that made you go and jump without having really done your homework? Or were you so confident in yourself?
I was scared. I'm not going to sit here and lie. I was scared. I remember the day I bought that first property, going home, looking out my window and saying, holy shit, I just did that. I just bought this property. And it felt like, okay, I bought it, but there's something missing. I don't really feel like I bought it because I really knew what I was doing, like into it in my spirit told me. But I want to go back to the statement you just made about let's get real. Let's get really real. Okay. Let's talk about that because it's important. And what I didn't share with you about my story was I didn't share with you my early days and why I became a real estate investor. I think that's more important than the what and the how. So my mom came here with me in 1978, pregnant with me. I'm originally from the Dominican Republic. I like to say I'm made in Dominican Republic, but raised in America, right? My mom came here pregnant with me. The most strongest and most courageous woman I know is my mother. She was 22 years old, went to a foreign country, foreign land, doesn't know the language, doesn't know anything, pregnant, and had me here to give us a better life. But we were so poor. When she had me here, she sent me back to the Dominican Republic to my grandmother, to be with my grandma until she got herself together. Financially, right? She got herself an apartment and she got herself right. When she sent me back home, I want to give people a picture of this because when we talk about sticking it to the man, it's important that you understand where I come from. And I want your listeners to think of, when you think of Beate, when you think of poverty, I want you to think of those commercials you see with those kids running around without shoes in Malaysia or those third world countries without shoes, no shirt,
no running water.
That was me. I used to live in the Dominican Republic. We had no running water. I had to wake up with my grandma every morning at 5 o'clock, walk half a block away with gallons, empty gallons of milk, right? But empty, to go fill up water so we could have water to brush our teeth. We had to boil it, brush our teeth, cook, and take showers with. Every day we had to do that. And we had these big 100-gallon tanks that we would have as reserve in the backyard. So we had no running water. When you use the toilet, we had to take water, put it in the little tank so that we could flush it. That's how poor I was. When it rained, our house was made of literally asbestos and tin. The roofs were tin. What happens is in the Caribbean, when the sun hits the tin, over time, it creates these little pinholes. And when it would rain, we would have to put cups or ollas, we call them. Those are pots. We would have to put pots and move them around so the water wouldn't get on the floor and inside the house and throw them out in the backyard. That's how poor I was. And then I came here in New York City, and we were poor too. It was 4 of us, 4 siblings in a 1-bedroom apartment. And at 16, my mother kicked me out. Right at 16, my mother kicked me out of the house. And during that time, Beate, I slept in trains in New York City and in rooftops. And it was painful and it was hard. But at 16 years old, I realized one thing was really, really important. I learned something really important. And that's when I made the decision to buy real estate. And I realized that as an adult and as human beings, we need 2 things, food and shelter. And I made a decision unconsciously that I was never, ever, ever going to go through that pain again, and that I was going to buy as many houses as I can so I don't ever have to sleep in a rooftop, in a beach, in a train, and I would never have to go through that again. Well, today, I have plenty of places to live, that's for sure. So that's really the root. I realized that today after many years of personal development and just reading and attending a lot of events and just working on myself, right? That's the real root of why I decided to go into real estate. And it also helped that I always wanted to be rich. So I used to always have this. I used to tell my mom, I wasn't born to be poor. I don't know how we do this thing, this struggle. I wasn't born for this. I was born to be wealthy. I was born to be rich. And it also helped that 90% of self-made millionaires are made through real estate.
How interesting.
So when I got the opportunity, I took it.
Yeah. And what you just said is I remember this moment when I sold my business and I hadn't really planned on buying a home quite yet because it was 2006 and the market was too hot. And I knew, it would have been way better to wait until the market cooled off. I would have gotten a better deal. But I was thrown out because he went through a divorce and he had to liquidate his assets. So I wasn't going to go rent another place and then wait for the right time. And so the opportunity came up. And I do remember exactly what you said. When I put my signature on that for that house, my only thought was nobody will ever be able to throw me out.
Yep. That's a good feeling, isn't it?
It is literally, I think, the most powerful feeling that you can have. And now when you said food and shelter, I think that you are absolutely correct. It goes back to something like super, super rudimentary. And that is, do I have something to eat? Do I have a place to sleep that is safe? And so the real estate, and again, we said we're going to keep it real. So real estate investing has a really bad rap. Where people have images of slumlords and taking advantage of poor tenants and buying these properties, never fixing them up. What's the real story here about the opportunity when it goes right and the opportunity where it goes wrong? Because I think when we want to stick it to the men, I'm a firm believer in abundance, and I know you do a lot of mindset work, and we'll touch on that. And I know you're an NLP certified hypnotherapist, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
So there's so much goes into it. Do you make a decision on whether you want to do it for good or you want to do it just for money? And is there even a difference?
That's a really good question, because I think you do it for both. You start out for money. And then once you become financially free, then what happens is once you become financially free, you need something to drive you, right? And if you don't have a purpose to drive you, then you just plateau. I think me personally, I have a philosophy, Beatrice, that you have to, every human being's responsibility is to figure out how to become financially free and to solve for the money situation. Now, there's a lot to unpack in the statement you said. So, you mentioned there's a lot of negative connotation around people, slumlords and things like that. So for me, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I'm going to keep it 100 with you. I started because I needed to become financially free. I was $170,000 underwater. I figured I did the research. 90% of self-made millionaires around the world are made through real estate. And I figured my best opportunity, the odds are in my favor if I go learn this business and go do it. I made some mistakes early on. I got out. I remember thinking, I'll share this with you because I don't share this often, but I remember in 2011 when everything was in the shitter, excuse my language, when everything was just crap in the economy and real estate, and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, real estate will never come back. Yeah, I would literally think that, like, who would buy real estate ever, right?
Yeah, right.
All the headlines
if you knew how bad it could get, why would you put yourself in a situation like this?
like it's never going to come back. It's going to be 30 years. I'm going to be an old man. This was my limited thinking. And however, the best opportunities come during these times. So today, one of the biggest takeaways I took away from that, Beatrice, was that it was painful. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. It was painful, right? Think about paying your bills, paying your mortgage using your house, eating using your house equity. Like, that's how bad it was. My house went underwater. I lost my mortgage company. And I didn't know what I was doing, right? Financially, I didn't know. I was just hearing all the negativity that was going on out there. But I think it's everyone's responsibility and duty to learn how to become financially free. But when you first become financially free, then it becomes to keep driving you forward. Then it has to be a purpose. And my purpose is to create high quality, affordable homes for people to create lifetime memories. And that's our mission and vision for our company. And the reason we do that, it's like I mentioned to you earlier, I come from nothing. So you just said there's a negative connotation around real estate investors, that there's the slumlords that don't fix nothing. Yes, there's a whole bunch of those. But there's also a negative connotation on our side with tenants.
Oh my gosh.
If you're Section 8, or if you are poor, or if you're going to invest in these communities, And I'm going to tell you that all of that is also BS, because I come from poverty, right? I just told you. And as poor as we were growing up on welfare, food stamps, Medicaid, all the government programs, as poor as we were, you could go to my mother's home and to our home, and it was always spotless and well taken care of. So just because someone is poor does not mean that they're dirty and they're destructive and that they're not going to be responsible. And that's the other side to it.
Yeah,
that's the other side to it. So for me, I want to serve that community. I want to serve the underserved community. For me, I want to create good, clean, safe, affordable housing. And if you go to my YouTube or you go to any of my on my Instagram, you'll see it. You'll see it. Listen, and here's the thing that comes with that. What comes with that is you're gonna have some people that are gonna be destructive. I just had a vacancy, a girl that I rented a property for, Section 8. She was amazing. She was with me for 3 years, and then she started going bad. She destroyed my property. It costed me $8,000. I'm literally losing my profits on that property that I made over the last 2 years because it's only a duplex. I'm losing all of my profits I made over the last year and a half on that property, almost 2 years on that property, because I have to rehab it because she destroyed it. That's the side of real estate that the guys on YouTube and they're not telling you about. And that's the side that you have to prepare for. That's the side I didn't know about when I first bought my first investment, when I was doing it all myself. You prepare for that. You know there's going to be a certain percentage of people that are going to do that to you. There's going to be a certain percentage of people that are going to have to evict, that are not going to pay you. That's the ugly side, right? That a lot of the HGTVs don't show you. They don't tell you.
No. They don't tell you that the tenant backs with their car into your garage door and then doesn't tell you about that.
100%.
All right. We'll be right back after this message, and then we'll talk about how we can become a real estate icon. We'll be right back. Are you looking for the hidden opportunities for you in this market? Or are you simply wanting to figure out what is your unique differentiation factor that makes clients want to work with you and not your competitors? If this resonates, I want to invite you to go to uncoverysession.com and schedule your 15-minute complimentary uncovery session with one of our business growth advisors that will take you through what your number one business growth blocker is, what you can do to remove it, and what your very best next step should be. And now let's get back to the show. Martin, I got a good chuckle out of it because you said that, the things that you need to be prepared for when you become the real estate icon or tycoon, tycoon, I think is the word.
Tycoon.
And the part that I'm really still struggling with you is, where's the NLP stuff coming in? Where's all of this other stuff coming in? Because there's, I think, a piece of the story we haven't even uncovered yet. Because from everything I know and every story I've ever heard, to become great or to become successful, the people that have the longevity of the success typically have more than just money. My favorite quote is like the Princess Leia quote to Han Solo, where she says, "If money is all you want, money shall be all you get." And it just really sticks with me, this quote, because I believe that if you have something more than money, you have a better life. So tell me how, after this, I want to be rich. I don't want to ever be in poverty again. What was it that shifted it? Was there a moment, an inflection point where you said, I've taken care of myself, now I'm going to pay it forward? What was it? And how does NLP go into this?
That is a loaded question, and it's an excellent question. It's an excellent question. So we're all driven by something, right? So I've attended many, many workshops. I just came from a real estate workshop in Los Angeles just 2 days ago. On Saturday, I flew back in for 3 days. I'm constantly and always improving and getting better. But what happens is I went to a workshop where I was questioned, and it was like, what is the purpose of your life, right? What is the purpose? What is your purpose? And when I uncovered my purpose, which my purpose is to empower others to be the best version of themselves, as well as me become the best version of myself. And I do that through many different ways. I do it through my YouTube channel, my Instagram, my podcast, right? I now teach all of these things that I've learned on how to create wealth. Like I said, remember I said earlier, I think that one of human beings' responsibility and duties is to learn how to become financially free and to figure out this money thing. Because I've been there. When you're worried about money and you're worried about just paying your bills and you worry about using your HELOC, this guy right here, using credit card to pay your bills, right? You can't think and you can't serve the world. You can't give your talents to the world. So I think the first thing we have to do is figure that out. What really moves me, I can't really be the best version of myself and do that and help others unless I'm taken care of first. So I got to get out there and work, figure out this money thing so that I can go and serve unto others and give. Now I speak at conferences, I host meetings, I have a podcast, I'm constantly teaching, I'm coaching people. I give a lot of this information for free. Hey, you can do it. If a poor kid like me, poor kid barely born in America can do it, comes from the bottom, nothing, so can you. So can anyone, right? And the biggest struggles that I find that people struggle with, including myself, still to this day, right? Because there's levels to this thing. There's levels to things. I told you we now have a 160 unit apartment building on the contract. It's the biggest property in my career that I'm going to be buying, my partner and I.
I'm going to just say, it's moving the oh shit moment.
Yes. So you're constantly, Tony Robbins says you have to learn how to dance with fear. Right. And it's all about the conversations that I'm having in my head with myself. It's all about how I speak to myself. It's all about how you speak to yourself. And listeners, those of you listening, those of you watching, what are the conversations that you're having with yourself? Are you having conversations that, hey, if you're listening to me or you're watching me, if that guy can do it, I can also do it. And that's what you should be thinking. I'm smart. I'm intelligent. What is it that I don't know that I need to learn to get there? Who is it that I need to become to get right to that point? So my wife and I, we're looking at a house. We're selling our house, and we're looking at another house we want to buy. A beautiful home, right? A significantly step up. And my wife says to me, we're in a conversation, and I'm like, babe, this is a big play for us. Like, you remember when the first house we bought? Like, this is a big deal for us, right? But we're having the conversation, and it came up, and I said to her, what we need to figure out, it's not how we're going to do it, but the question we need to be asking is, who do we need to become to do these things that we're dreaming in our head? Because that's who we are today is not who we were. So I'll share a quick story with you. I remember in 2003, no, before that, it was like 2001, 2002. I was living in New York City, and my wife and I, we had joined this multi-level marketing thing. If you remember, not Avon, the other one, they sell like lotions and things like that. Anyways, it was a multi-level, but you learn a lot in those things, right? You learn a lot because they teach you about books, personal development, and they taught us to dream. We were broke, flat
Mary
broke.
Kay.
I mean, Mary Kay, yes, one of those.
Okay.
Yeah. We were flat broke. I mean, we were broke, right? Like bad. And we went to see this house, and it was this beautiful house in Queens, mansion. It was a mansion to us, right? And we were like, yeah, we want to buy this house. I mean, it was messed up because we're in real estate now. And poor lady that was showing us this house, right? She thought she had some technology tycoons here going to go buy $1 million house. In 2001, that was a lot of money, right? And we went to see this house. And the irony of it is we were there, we were dreaming, and it was such a beautiful home. And about 5 years later, we wind up building a bigger house than that one in Pennsylvania, right? We moved out of there. We wind up building a bigger house than that. And the point is, like, hey, you got to dream, you got to believe, you got to take yourself on the journey, right? You got to believe, like, before any of this happened for me, I was believing, and I just didn't know how. I just knew I would, right? I always believed that I don't know how, babe, but I wasn't born to be broke. We're born to be rich. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it. I don't know how.
It's interesting that you are almost like sharing a personal mantra. And I think that sometimes, especially in mindset, and I want to just spend a minute on this, it's really important to understand that oftentimes a mindset piece is not necessarily a very clear definition of, I will live in the 5,000 square foot home, the windows are facing west, the sun, sets over my Steinway piano. That's great when you can actually think that way, but it takes time to train yourself. But what I'm hearing is that you had a very fundamental mantra. And your mantra was, I am not born to be poor. My mantra was, I will not drown in a puddle. If I were going to go down in flames, I knew it was going to be an inferno, because dying by a match is just not worth it to me, right? So I always thought that at the end of the day, the joke cannot be on me. I mean, I remember that, when all of this stuff happened and I was on my knees and I raised my fist and I yelled at God, I said, I'm a good person. It cannot be that after all of this, at the end of the day, the joke will be on me. And so what advice would you have for our audience? How do you identify a mantra that's not a classic mindset mantra, if there's such a thing? And maybe it's an awkward question, but I feel
no, that's a great question.
You.
That's a really good question. Look, I've created this formula. I don't know if it's my own creation, but I figured something out in life about personal development. And I have this formula is D plus C plus MA equals success. And D is you have to decide. So the first thing is you have to decide what is it that you want, right? I knew it was very vague for me. I just knew I wanted to be financially free. I wanted to be rich. I didn't know what that looked like. I just knew that I didn't want to go report to a boss. I didn't want to be forced to have to go to work. I didn't have to be forced to do anything. I was always very independent. I always wanted to. And what the irony of that is that for me, I used to think I didn't want to be forced to do anything. But in order to be successful, you have to have a high level of discipline, which you're forced to do what you have to do because you know that's the right thing that's going to get you success. But it's different because you're playing in another playing field, right? But when you're young and you're just starting out, you don't know that. You're just thinking, no one tells me what to do. At least that's what I was thinking.
I'm going to stick it to the man.
I'm going to stick it to the man. You're not going to tell me what to do. Exactly. So the first thing is you got to decide what it is that you want. Right? Hey, if it's real estate, if it's stocks, if it's whatever it is, computers, whatever it is that you want to do, investing in tax liens, whatever it is, decide. You got to make a decision. For me, the decision was I ain't going to be poor. I didn't know what that was going to be. I didn't know what it was. I'm not going to be poor. Then I discovered real estate and realized that, hey, 90% of millionaires around the world, self-made millionaires, are made through real estate. I said, that's it. I got to figure that out, because the odds in my favor.
So Martin, what I heard is in mindset work, what I've read and what I've studied, it always says you make the decision. The decision is not a wish. There's a difference between the decision and the wish. It's a decision. When you make the decision, you determine who do you need to be, you learn the skill set, and then you take the actions that are going to get you to that particular goal. Because 100%. If I am not this person that can handle the pressure that a $10 million deal with the 147 units or 160 units that you're buying, that takes a particular kind of person to be able to handle that kind of pressure and to have access to that kind of money. So it's not like that's not your first building. There's a pathway to that. So there's a duplex and there's a triplex and there's a quadruplex and there's 10 and there's 20 and 50 and boom, now you get to 160. It makes a huge, huge difference. What would you say to somebody who says, I want to get started in creating myself a financial future. I want to be like Martin. I want to be rich and I want to use real estate. Where do they start?
There's these two shoe salesmen. I'm going to share this to answer that question. These two shoe salesmen that were sent to a remote island to sell shoes. When they got there, they both got off the boat and they got on a flight and they got on a boat. They got to this island. And when they got there, they realized that no one on the island is wearing shoes. So think about this. Two shoe salesmen go sell shoes. No one on the island selling shoes. The one guy goes up to his hotel room. He calls his boss and he says, boss, put me on the flight back home tomorrow because no one on this island is wearing shoes. The other guy went in his room, picked up the phone, called his boss and said, boss, send me 10,000 pairs of shoes because no one on this island is wearing shoes and I'm going to put shoes on everyone on this island. My advice is to answer the question. The point of the story is that your perspective is your reality, right? What are you choosing? How are you choosing to see life? Are you choosing to see life that life is happening to you or life is happening for you? All right. So, start. If it's real estate you want, decide that it's real estate that you want, and then go and learn, right? Go and learn, go and model. In NLP, we have something called modeling behavior. And what that means is go and find someone that's doing what you want to do, right? Go and find someone that's already successful in what you want. They're out there, guys. You're listening to someone right now, right? We're on this podcast. You're listening to someone that's really doing it, right? Go out there, go find there's meetups, go to meetups, start attending, go and immerse yourself in this content. It's not that hard, guys. Listen, the biggest thing about real estate, I'm going to talk about real estate because you can apply this to anything, but we're talking about real estate. The biggest thing in real estate is that people think that it's a lot of, oh my gosh, that's so challenging. No, it's sixth grade math, guys. Literally, it's sixth grade math. The math that I do every day with my team and when I'm underwriting a deal, it's sixth grade math. It's not this high level math. It's, hey, what am I buying it at? What do I need to put into it? What can I push the value to? Once you understand these things, it's like, okay, it's math. Then what do I have to go to the bank for and get from the? It's just simple math. Decide, commit, take action, and you'll see the results. But go and surround yourself. Find model behaviors. Start listening to podcasts. Start looking for people. Start going to groups. They're free. These meetups are free. They're in every city across the world, right? There's a meetup app, meetup.com. Look for real estate investors meeting. If that's what you want to be, that's what you want to do. And then ask yourself this question: who is it that I have to become to get this ideal life that I want? That's the question. You know, when I started in business, sadly, and I'm almost embarrassed to say, I used to be a guy that integrity wasn't a big deal for me. And then I started getting around really successful people, and you know what I found? That because I used to have this limiting belief that rich people are bad, because that's what I grew up listening to.
It's
Poor,
classic,
bad,
yeah.
all this bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Rich people bad, and they're crooks and all this stuff. But here's what happened to me. As I started working on myself and I started getting around rich people and people doing things at a high level, I started realizing that, man, these are the kindest, nicest, with the most integrity people I've met. Generous. And I'm like, man, I don't have that characteristic of integrity, like just doing what I say I'm going to do, honoring my word. And it starts with you. When you say you're going to do something, do it, because it reflects on everything else in your life. But what you say you're going to do. Hey, if I say I'm going to be here, meet Beatrice at 2:00 in the afternoon, 2:15 to do this interview, I'm going to be there. It starts with the little things.
Yes. And this is also a really big thing in mindset work, is if you can't keep the word that you give to yourself, you are getting yourself in a lot of trouble, not with anybody else. Well, that's aside from that, but really with yourself and your own integrity, because you're training yourself to not believe in yourself as a trustworthy person. I think that is a lot of the damage that people do to themselves. But whether you show up for a podcast or not, at the end of the day, does it matter to me? No, there's plenty of people I can talk to. But if you don't show up, you've just proven yourself that you cannot be trusted. You didn't keep your word. You upset someone else. You wasted people's time, energy, and money. And how are you going to go at the end of the day, look in the mirror and feel good about it? My dad always said to me, he says, when at the end of the day, before you go to bed and you look in the mirror, you're going to have to be able to live with that person that looks back at you.
100%. Let me tell you, I'm going to talk to you as a man now, as a male, right? I have 4 kids, I'm married, 4 kids. And let me tell you, there's something about good or bad, when a man accepts accountability, when a human being accepts accountability, I'm going to speak as a man, that there's something about when you're like, hey, man, I screwed up, I own that makes you feel like a man. There's something about like, hey, I screwed up. My wife, I was out to dinner with my wife yesterday, and she said, you lied to me about this. And I was like, babe, what are you talking about? I accept the response. She said, you said you did this and you didn't, but you told me here. And I was like, babe, shit, you're right. 100%, I own it. I just, no excuses. I own it. Right. There's just, when you do that, man, you just, and we're all humans. No one's perfect, right? No one's perfect, but there's something about that every time, and I learned this at a Warrior camp at an event I went to. And one thing they taught us at Warrior was they gave a great illustration. They said, every time you give your word to something, right, small thing, and you don't do it, right, no one sees it. but you and that person, or you told that person, hey, I'm going to be there at this, or I'm going to do this, and you don't do it, you start losing a little bit of yourself, just a little bit of yourself, a little bit of you. And if you do that enough times, it compounds and you lose yourself. I have been there. This is what I'm talking. I have been there. If you dishonor your word to when you give your word to others enough times, you lose your essence of who you are. Because if we don't have our words, then what do we have?
Nothing. It's the foundation of your being. At the end of the day, is I think the idiosyncrasies, the screwing up, all of that stuff. That's all acceptable. They're lying about it or not taking responsibility. And that to me is like the worst. It's like, look, if I cannot admit to myself that I've made a mistake, I hinder my own growth, because my growth comes from accepting responsibility for something that I have done, or something that I've inadvertently done, or something that I intended a particular way. And a lot of times we see this when people interpret fact. Somebody posted about a woman holding up a particular sign that had a particular message, and it was very clear to this person what that sign meant. And then me being a journalist, I went in and I said, not so fast. You should be worried that there's Chinese characters under this Facebook profile that somebody somehow made an article about. Okay. I said, so as a journalist, that's the first red flag for me. Number two, I said, where's the origin of that source? I looked at the website, said, that's not a reputable source of information. It's not like an Associated Press or Reuters. I said, so let's research. And we found the original video. And it's literally somebody who is naive and young and is following a particular narrative. You listen to this person, you know what the narrative is, and you go, man, she's so uninformed. It's painful to listen. And with what she did and the interpretation of other people, that she literally just canceled herself. I mean, this for this woman is going to be an absolute disaster. But my point to that is that in life, we have to be very clear. And I love this about this conversation, Martin. We have to be very clear. This is my shit. I own this. And I own it because it is what I use as my gasoline to propel me to that next step, because now I can exclude that mistake from my future.
100. I love that. I love that. I love that. It's becoming a mastery of craft. You know, you said something really key, and I think I want to just commend you for that, and then just reiterate what you just said. And it's like your ability to think and process is what makes you successful. Right? My ability to think and process is what makes me successful. If you ask me what is my strongest attribute, is my ability to think and process. I don't just look at things, or I don't look at a post, or I don't look, I question it. I was at a real estate investors event with some really, really smart people, right? And one of the speakers, I was having lunch with him. He is an icon in our space, right? Icon. He's going to be on my podcast here in the next couple of weeks. Just a brilliant, he's a genius. Just a genius. That's all I can say. And we're sitting there having lunch, and I asked him a question. And everyone around us, it was like 6 of us in this table. He was to my right. And I said, hey, Neil, blah, blah, blah. And I asked him the question. And he gave his answer. And the guy said he doesn't consider himself a real estate investor. He considers himself a data scientist. That's the kind of mind he has. Like, he looks at real estate as the data, and that's how he makes decisions. I mean, he's brilliant. And he said something to me. And I was like, you know what, Neil? I appreciate what you just said, but I disagree with this. And here's why. Because I see it this way. Like, I can process things myself. And I think in order to be successful, you said it, like, you have to be able to look and discern. It's called discernment. You got to be able to have discernment. And that's what you were talking about, like discern. You were able to look at this picture, you were able to look at this thing and discern and say, wait a minute, 1 + 1 is not adding up here, right? Let me look at this. Let me verify this. And kudos to you, and kudos to you for sharing that with your audience, because we need more of that. We need more people to be thinkers and independent thinkers. And when I was talking to my project manager, one of my employees this morning in our weekly meeting, and I said to him, he was like, what did you learn at this event? And I said, I learned a bunch of things. And he was asking me, what are you doing to hedge yourself against what we're going through right now with interest rates and everything that's happening in our economy? And I said, dude, what you're seeing me do now, I've been planning for this for the last 8 years, because I went through 2008. So I've been planning for when things got like this, how to hedge my bet against this. I was talking about the market, that this was going to happen in the market in February of last year. And people were looking at me like, hey, you're crazy. I was studying, and it's like, I was paying attention. I'm literally in my craft, a master of my craft, like you said earlier, like, right? Become a master of what's your shit.
Exactly. And so for somebody who now wants to stick it to the man and maybe needs your help doing that, where will we send them, Martin?
They can connect with me on Instagram, Martin Perdomo, the Elite Strategist on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. If you look up Martin Perdomo, you can also go to listen to my podcast. I have a ton of people there. I actually am going to have B there. She's going to be my guest here real soon there. So you could check out my podcast, Latinos in Real Estate Investing Podcast. And I'm just constantly, if you look me up, I'm constantly giving this stuff. I'm constantly putting out information. I'm constantly giving even what I learned. So even the stuff I learned at these events, I'm putting it out right away. I want to empower people. My goal is to empower people, man. Go create wealth. Go learn. Go take the information I'm giving to you and go check it. Go test it. Don't believe me just because I say it. Also, go and do diligence on me as well. But if it resonates with you, take it and run. If it doesn't, take out what doesn't and take what does and go for it. Thank you, my dear.
And that's it for us for today. Thank you so much for listening and watching. This is your host, Beate Gillette, and until next time, and goodbye. Thank you for listening to or watching the show. We are so excited that you're here, and we are very grateful for you. Now it's our turn to ask you for help. Please do share this episode with one other person that needs to hear what we were talking about today. If there's any question you have about business, please do reach out to us and let us know. And don't forget to schedule your complimentary uncovery session at uncoverysession.com, where one of our business growth advisors will help you to figure out what your number one business growth blocker is in only 15 minutes. And that's it for us today. Until next time.